Welcome everybody to this lesson, CSS Tables. We are going to be discussing how to style our HTML tables. And in this lesson, we are going to be looking at table borders, how we are actually going to create our borders for our tables. We're also going to be looking at the table size. We'll look also at the table alignment, table styling using the table style attribute, and then table responsive. And we are going to be looking all that in the code section. Just to remind my viewers of how HTML tables are created, right? We have the TR tag, which signifies the table row. So under the table tag, which signifies the table, you're going to have a table row tag, which is for every row in the table, right? So you can see we have the table row tag, 3 rows. So we have 3 table rows, right? Now we have the top row is always the table head, right? So this is like the header section of your table. And as you can see, each of these is the th element. So you're going to see the th tag over there. And then we have the data entry fields, which is the T data, right? Table data TD tags. So that is what you have over there. So let's go right to the code section and do some coding. So guys, this is the table that we are going to be working with. This is our HTML table, and I'm not going to do it from scratch because we already discussed that in our HTML table section. So if you haven't seen that lesson, you can go in and watch it. But you can see, like I was saying, we have the table element signifying the start and end of our table, and then we have the table row signifying each row in our table. So we have the first name and last name, and this first name and last name is the header of our table. So we have the th, right? That tells us that this is the head section, table head. And then for each row where the data is going to be inputted, we have the td element, right? So you have the Mark Twain, Andy Taylor, and Angela Simmons all being data fields. Okay, so you can see in our HTML here, we have the entries and the headers, and that is our table. So we are going to be using this table, and we are going to be styling this table using our CSS. So the first thing that we are going to be doing is adding a table border, right? And to do that, we go to the style section, which is in the head section of our HTML. And then we are going to target the element, which is the table, right? So I'm going to say I want the table element, and I want to style by putting a border, setting a border for the table. And I want to have a 1 pixel solid. What color should we choose? Let's say black. Okay, I'm just going to refresh this so we see how it looks like. So you can see that the border of our table is black, solid, and it's a 1 pixel, right? Also, if you wanted if you wanted a header section should also have the border, you can also add that to the style. So I'm going to add th to the style, and then you can also see here that the the headers all have borders, right? And then the table itself also has a border, right? So if you wanted the data entries to also have borders, all you have to do, and you guessed it right, have a TD in here. And when I refresh it, you can see that all the data entry fields all have borders. So all the elements actually here have borders around it. So as I'm looking at this table, it looks small, and you are right. So if we wanted the table to span the entire width of the entire width, we can do that. We can set a property uh, called the width property on the table, which is going to allow it to span the entire width, right? So I'm gonna just target the table here, and in here I'm just gonna say give me a width of 100%, saying that take up the entire space available. So you can see now that the width in this table is now the entire width available. You can technically, not technically, you can actually specify any width that you want. So if I wanted a 500 pixel width, I could just do that, and you see, depending on what you want. So for now, I'm just gonna leave it at 100%. Right? If you wanted half, you can just say 50%, and that should be enough. So this looks nice, but I already see that we have double borders, right? Because we have borders for each element and borders for the table, so it's looking a little doubly, right? So you can fix that by using the border collapse property, which sets whether you want single border or a collapsed border. If you want to collapse these borders, double borders, into a single border, you just use the border collapse attribute. So let's do that, right? So in my table, I'm going to use the border collapse, and that is not the way we spell collapse, but I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to set the value to collapse. Okay, so now when I refresh this, voila, you can see that the double borders have all collapsed into one. So that is what we want. Now, we talked about the table width, but you can also make changes to the table height, or the height of some of the. If you wanted to change the header, the height of the header, you could do that, right? So in fact, let's just do that for the header, right? So to do that, all I have to do is target the header and style it by saying height, and I want to put it at maybe 50 pixels. So if I refresh this, the height is now 50 pixels, right? So you can change the height to your preferred height. Okay, again, uh, if you wanted to use percentages, you could, but if you want to be very specific, you can use pixels and be on your way. The next thing that we should be looking at is alignment. How do we align the text within the context of your data fields or your header fields or whatever, right? So you can see by default that your headers are always centered in the middle, right? And then your data fields are always left aligned. You can see it's left, always left aligned to the space, the TD fields. So that's by default, but we can change that, right? So I'm going to change the default a little bit, and then align the header to the left, and then the data to the middle. So we already have th here, so I'm going to use text align, and I'm going to say left. So if I refresh this, you can see that it's aligned left, right? And then my td, I can now align my td to the center, right? So if I say align, and let me do it properly, and this should be text align, and this time I'm gonna center it. So if I refresh this, it's centered, right? And just so this doesn't visually look good to me, I'm gonna center the header also, right? So that is the text align. It aligns the content of your data left, right, or you center it, right? So now we have everything centered. Another thing that we can do is vertical alignment, right? How do we align this vertically? We already talked about horizontal alignment, which is the text align. We can also do vertical alignment, right? And we're going to take an example of this. So for example, for this header section, I'm going to try and align this to the bottom, right, of the space. So let's do that. So we have our header section. I'm going to use the uh, vertical align, and I'm going to align this either to the bottom. Right now it's to the middle by default, but I am going to align this to the bottom, right? So you can see that this aligned to the bottom of this. So there are a lot of options that you can choose, and it depends on what you want. You can always choose top, bottom, or you can just put it in the middle, right? So now let's do some CSS table styles, right? Let's do some padding. Let's add some padding to our table. So in here, if I wanted to add a padding of to the th and td elements, I can do it. I can just put a padding, and the padding actually is the space between the border and the content, right? In the table. So for example, this padding that I'm adding to the th 15 pixel padding is going to be 15 pixels from the content or the text and the border, right? So if I refresh this right now, you see that 15 pixels, 15 pixels, 15 pixels, all in all directions. So you have a 15 pixel pad, right? And just for, I'm just gonna use this as middle, just so we can see, right? Okay, so I padded it 15 pixels in all directions. Okay, so that is the padding of using padding in our design. Let's say you wanted to add a hover effect on your table, meaning if I hover over the table rows, it should change color, right? You could do that. And to do that, you use the uh, colon hover selector on the tr element, right? And let's just do that to highlight the rows using the mouse over. Okay, so to do that, I have my tr, which I haven't created yet, and I can do that now. So I have my table row elements, and then I'm going to style it by saying tr, and then I'm going to use the colon hover selector, right? And then I'm going to say background color. Anytime you hover over your tr, I want the background color, and set it to light gray, or let's say gray. Okay. And what the hell did I just do? Uh, yep. This tr should be tr hover. Yep. And this should be good. So I'm just gonna tab backwards. Okay. So yes, gray. Okay. So if I refresh this, I don't see anything, but when I hover over it, every row that I hover over changes to gray, right? So that is the hover effect. There is a design we call the strip tables, meaning that you want alternating rows to have different colors, right? You want to color alternating rows differently. So let's try and do that. To do that, we use the nth child selector, right, on the tr row element, right? And then you either choose if you wanted to select odd or even rows. Okay, so let's try and do that. So I'm just gonna do tr, and I'm gonna use the nth child, selector, and I'm going to pass in even. So you can either pass in even or odd, right? And then in here, I'm going to say I want the background color to have maybe bisque. Okay. So now when I refresh this, you can see that the even rows have the color and then the other rows don't. Good. Again, you can also use table. You can also change the table color of other elements, right? For example, you want the header to have a specific color of the text and then the background. You can also do that. And so just let's try and do that, right? So for th, I want it to have a background color of, say, chocolate and a text color of cornflower blue. Okay, so when I refresh this, this is like the worst possible selection you can ever make. But I can change that. It looks like white color might just do. Right. So, yep, that did it. Right. So you can see that you can actually affect the color of your table. Right. Just choose your element and then style it the way you want. Finally, I want to talk about a responsive table. And a responsive table is one that would always display a horizontal scroll bar if the screen is too small to display the full content of your table. And you would want that because of your site being viewed on smaller devices, phones, and other devices. So you would want to be able to have uh, that feature in there. And to do that, you simply have to, there are two steps to this. You have to encapsulate your table in a div, right? And then you have to add the overflow attribute to the div. So let's just go ahead and try this. So this is your table right here. What you do is you create a div and then you just put your table in the div, and I don't think I copied it right. Undo. Okay, this is getting embarrassing. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this and paste it right in here, right? So now that you've encapsulated your table in the div container, you can now add the style attribute, and then in here you're gonna have overflow in the X direction and set it to auto. Great, just like this. So when the screen is small, it gives you the scroll bar, and then you can always scroll and see the rest of your table entries. Okay, so if I refresh this, you're not gonna see much. It only happens when the screen is too small, but in this case, uh, we are not gonna see anything right now. But yeah, you need that so that your page displays correctly on smaller devices. So thank you all, and see you in the next lesson. Bye.